Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome to this Access webinar session today. My name is Sarah Golding. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Knowledge Exchange Fellow on the Access project and I'm based at the University of Surrey. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our guest speaker today, Dr. Ruth Lamont. Ruth is based at she works at Natural England. She's a Principal Officer in Research Ethics and she's also a member of our Access Leadership College. Ruth is a social psychologist with research predominantly looking at well-being in later life and amongst people with long-term health conditions, but she also works on the topic of nature and health more broadly. Her current role at Natural England is to oversee its Research Ethics Committee and develop organisational processes and expertise in this area. And today in this webinar, she is going to be sharing with us an overview of a collaborative project that's produced a new set of social science resources for the environmental sector. And these have been designed to support better understanding of the social sciences and encourage improved use of the social sciences within environmental organisations. So a couple of quick housekeeping bits. We're recording the session today. We will be recording Ruth's talk. There will be a Q&A after, but that part won't be recorded. So I think that's the main bit of housekeeping. The other thing is just to say around the timing, this is a 30-minute session, but depending on how active the Q&A becomes, Ruth has very kindly agreed to stay on for an extra 5 or 10 minutes if needed at the end. So we'll judge that later on, but it is scheduled for around half an hour today. And without further ado, I shall hand over to Ruth.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you everybody for joining as well in your lunch break, much appreciated. I'm going to put on the presentation. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the intro, and Kirsty also for helping with all the organisation, making sure the tech works. So I guess Sarah's given you a quick flavour of my background. I've worked at the University of Kent and Exeter previously. I guess my experience there was quite different from where I work now. I was very much surrounded by other social scientists. And now I sit within what's called the Chief Scientist Directorate at Natural England, and of an organisation of about 3,000 people. That's 500 people in the Chief Scientist Directorate. And amongst that, we've got a team of 15 social scientists at the moment. So that just shows kind of that we're in a minority, I guess, in the organisation. We do have other people that have social science backgrounds and experience and still practice the social sciences, but we're still very much in a natural science kind of world. And so in this brief session, I wanted to tell you more about, I guess, the challenges of this context that we experience sometimes and how we discovered that this is actually quite similar to a number of other environmental organisations. I'll then go on and explain how we sought Access Flex funding and how it aimed to kind of start to address some of this need, what we did and the resources that we produced, and then some suggestions for future developments that we can make in this area. So one of the most important things, I think, is to introduce the Natural Environment Social Research Network, or NESRN for short. This is a really long-standing and helpful collaboration between environment and nature agencies in Great Britain. And you can see here from the logos, the kind of core group. So we've got us, Natural England, we've got Nature Scot, Environment Agency, Natural Resources Wales, and Forest Research. And all members are practicing social researchers across the agencies. And together we aim to further the quality and impact of the social sciences in the work that we do. But there's a much wider network as well that brings together lots of other agencies that are kind of in a similar space. And they all come and contribute to the network meetings, and together we're able to kind of share our social science ideas, projects, resources, and so on. And it's through this network that we kind of began to realise a bit of a shared need. So we're all in this environment and nature space, and we all have fairly limited social science teams and staff. In some agencies, it can be as little as one social scientist representing. And despite this, there's a really encouraging growing interest in and demand for social science research. And we really don't want to discourage this. It's a really positive thing. But we then, based on the limited resource to kind of meet this, we're seeing an increasing number of non-social scientists kind of trying social science as part of their day job. And this can lead to concerns around quality and the lack of specialist involvement in what's being produced. So I guess in summary, that the need is kind of to balance that encouragement of the social sciences within our organisations and using it better to address environmental issues, whilst ensuring that the social science is actually done well. So we were really happy to see that Access were advertising for round one of Flex Fund. I think that was back at the end of last year. And we put in a proposal and were successful. And the overarching aim was to support better understanding of the social sciences and encourage improved use within environmental organisations, which seems quite a broad aim, but we were doing this within the reality of it's a small pot of funding. And kind of thinking what might be the first steps in this process that we could apply to do. And this was done with the support of Beth Clark at Newcastle University, who did a great job of delivering a lot of the work, and also the National Centre for Research Methods, which if you go on their website, they've already got lots of really helpful social science resources that they're constantly producing. So within this kind of frame of mind that we can't deliver everything that we want to, we thought, what's the best things we could do within the space of this grant? And so along the top, the three blue boxes are the three main outcomes, I guess, and they come in order in the timelines. The first thing was to scope what are the commonalities across our agencies that are the kind of the need there, and create a kind of statement around this. Second was to find existing resources that could be put in to address these needs into kind of a guide. And I say existing resources because you really need to put a bit more. And if you're going to do justice to creating new ones, I think it needs to be kind of the next steps almost. And so then, yeah, the final thing is to produce future recommendations, not lose all that learning that we've got from the scoping, but say, okay, what else was recommended? What would be the next steps here? And so we've now delivered this kind of project. We're still kind of in the future recommendation space. We're still having conversations about what's next. But I can thankfully tell you about kind of what we've done so far, which is the majority of the project. So what did we actually do? We started with the scoping, and we had 17 social scientists from 6 environmental organisations who really helpfully shared their experiences around kind of what difficulties are they seeing, what questions they're being asked, and what would be helpful for them. We then had a much wider survey of those that don't sit within social science teams or class themselves necessarily as social scientists across various different organisations. I'll show you a pie chart of everybody that was involved, and we amazingly got 193 responses, and this is across 13 environmental organisations. And of those 193, there was a variability in people's experience. Some people were complete novices to social science, while others actually had a social science degree, just weren't currently sitting within a social science post. And so I wanted to show you, I'm not going to show you all the findings, you can read the report for that, but we wanted to really assess how confident people felt in their use of social science. And so this is only 128 of the respondents, and those are the ones that hadn't said they've got a social science degree or substantial training in that area. So these are those that would be more new to it. And we asked them about their levels of confidence in a number of different social science activities. And so you can see the activities on the left-hand side. So things like knowing what the social sciences are, all the way to analysing and interpreting quantitative social science data. Along the top, you've got the scale of very unconfident to very confident. And so then the numbers underneath are representing the number of people that gave that answer, and then a percentage in brackets. So if the darker the red gets, the more people responded in that choice. And so we can kind of see a general trend of these individuals were saying that they know about the social sciences, they know how to get support internally, they know how to use existing evidence to inform their current work. But they much more struggle in that getting that external commissioning, knowing how to do that, and also doing any of it themselves. And this, I guess, this might be expected, but we then found it really helpful to have their open-ended responses in the survey, and also the interviews with the social scientists to find out a little bit more about how could we then address these kind of needs that might be represented in these kind of levels of confidence. And putting those all together, again, I'm not going to present the whole analyses, but I've got some fairly crude put together 7 statements of what we took from this as needing to provide within this grant. So the first is we need resources that demonstrate the value of social sciences. And so I think this is coming quite heavily from the social science teams, people not understanding internally how social sciences can be integrated within a project and maybe an interdisciplinary project, and rather being a tag on a last minute, something that is perceived as not needing specialist skills or whatever, but really actually demonstrating the wide breadth of methods that are used within the social sciences and how they can really add depth and understanding to environmental issues. And so that they kind of suggested things like effective examples or case studies in this area. So 2 to 5 or more about the kind of providing a kind of more training aspect, I guess. So the first is to clearly outline and support, the second one is to clearly outline and support non-social scientists through the research process. So I think this was a concern around people kind of thinking, I'm going to do a survey, so I'm doing a survey, and not thinking, okay, is there existing evidence already in this area? What do I need to consider about having a representative sample? How can I plan this effectively? What are the ethical issues? Knowing, kind of showing people plainly what are the processes in research and that it's not just one stage I'm doing a survey. Number 3 was encouraging consideration of a range of social science methods available. And I guess I've said this before, kind of accepting that it's not just surveys as the only option. Number 4, our resources should cover the effective commissioning of social science research. I don't feel like we were able to do this with existing resources, to be honest. But kind of that providing support for those that aren't social scientists to know if they've commissioned well, if they're going to get the support that they need and what they're looking for. And I think we could definitely provide that as a future resource. Number 5, to provide introductory and more advanced options. So we had people with a range of expertise, and there was actually a real desire for not just the basic stuff, but for those that have a social science background, so kind of know how to use it in the work that they're doing in some ways, but want that continued professional development to learn more in depth about things like alternative methods, current thinking and ethical considerations, looking at their bias or positionality, and so on. And then the last 2 were a little bit more about how we pitch it. So there's very much a preference for live, kind of online or in-person training. And if that's not possible, video based on more interactive methods were preferred. And I guess it might seem obvious as well, individual advice, being able to talk to somebody is definitely preferred. And then the pitch, finally, making kind of examples and how it's pitched environmentally relevant, avoiding jargon, the social science jargon that we often use, and I've probably used throughout this presentation, and considering learner constraints, time constraints, and making things easy and accessible. So we put together all of these insights and thought, okay, what existing resources are there out there that we could use to address some of these needs? And we decided on putting together a SharePoint site with various guidance on, and our network really supported us in finding existing kind of videos, documents and training already out there that we could put together to address some of these needs, or start to at least. We did a quick pilot. Well, it wasn't too quick, actually. It was 5 social scientists gave feedback from various organisations, and then we had the actual piloting was 15 staff from 6 organisations. They were given an introductory session where they were introduced to this SharePoint site with the resources on. They then had 3 to 4 weeks to go and use it as they will, and then a final session to provide feedback. And there was a survey at the end and the beginning and end. And this table probably isn't hugely useful to you since I haven't told you what the different colour lines mean, but these all represent the different statements I showed you earlier in that table with the different shades of red. So these are all different social science skills, and this is just showing a general trend of increasing confidence from before to after. But remembering this is a sample of 15 people and we're not talking about significant changes here. But it was encouraging that people felt like the resources had given them a little bit of insights into these various areas. But most of all, I think we found the pilot useful for the fact that they gave really substantial feedback on improving them and changing them before we released the final thing. So I guess the bit that you're probably most interested in is how you can see the resources and use them. And so on the right-hand side here, this is the screenshot of the our internal Natural England SharePoint site. And you can see how that's actually the same page as this PDF that we've produced from it. So we drew all of our piloting work and put it into a PDF so we can share it with other people. Annoyingly, you can't export a whole SharePoint site. And we have suggested various uses, but honestly, use these resources as they're useful to you in an organisation. You might want to put them on your internal team pages and add to with your own stuff. You might want to share the whole guide with somebody starting a social science project, or you might want to just use it yourself as like if somebody says, I would like a little bit of help with something like writing a research question, and you can go in there, find the links of useful resources that help people to do that and send it to them. So that's how we would suggest people might use it. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And now do let me know, Sarah, if you can hear this when it comes up. Hopefully we tested it, so it should be fine. I wanted to give you just a little show of the SharePoint site and so that you can see a little bit more what it looks like in practice. I'm going to stop that there just in for time. But hopefully that's how you can kind of use the resources, but then also modify it and add to it with your own to make it your own and put that kind of personalised advice. So final slide is about future recommendations. There's lots we couldn't address through this grant. We're really grateful to Access for this starting point and to be able to do that scoping. And I think one of the first things that we need to do is increase the accessibility of these resources. Maybe a user-friendly online format that's ready to share and will allow us to kind of edit and manage the resources more effectively going forward. Second, I think it would be really good to create some of those resources that we couldn't find, so new across organisational ones. And examples of that might be helping people to understand how you effectively commission research, maybe providing that checklist like we've started to make internally within Natural England, or providing these kind of impact case studies, which I know that Access are thinking of doing anyway. Number 3, capturing user experience and ongoing support needs will be important. And finally, but definitely not least, is just growing social science expertise. I think what was highlighted throughout was that we need to emphasise that social sciences are a technical skill. And these kind of resources are useful for improved interdisciplinary working, for awareness raising and better commissioning of social science expertise. But they're not create social scientists. So we're in a landscape where demand for social science is growing faster than supply, and we need to kind of consider different ways that we can meet that need. So as well as employing more social scientists, which we wish our organisations could do, but they can't always, there's not always the money there for that, we could think of alternative ways of doing this. Could we somehow produce social science courses for natural scientists alongside their work? Or instead co-develop an online or in-person training course that's accessible to environmental organisations? I'd love to hear your thoughts around this area. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there. And just want to say thank you to everybody that contributed to the surveys, interviews, and feeding in resources. And we've got the link here to the report and the resources, so we can send around the slides after. Thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ruth. We're clapping in the room here, those that hosted it today. That was fantastic.